the routing that I'm using to capture MIDI from my iPad, uh, which I'm using various devices here. I'm also able to record. Okay, so the audio in the system preferences come up. When you look at your sound, it's much slower than it usually is. I guess the screen and here and everything. Okay, so the sound, the output is a USB codec, which is my mixer that I have everything going in and out of. The iConnect MIDI 2 is a MIDI and audio interface that connects the iPad and allows audio to be fed into and MIDI to be recorded. The aggregate device is a combination of these two that have to be done for this to work. So, in order to get the two audio systems, USB and iConnect, one being the mixer and the other one being an interface box, to be selectable in the same program or DAW like this one, is to create an aggregate. And this is important, and this is what I'll talk about now. There's also the MIDI network setup here, which came in. We'll get into that later. But the aggregate is found here in audio devices. So you go down here and you press create an aggregate device, and then you select the mixer, so the mixer input, output, and then the iConnect, and so then they become left, right, input, left, right, output from the mixer. These are the input and that's the output, and then the iConnect is 3/4. So this is 1, 2, and then 3/4. And this is important too. Your clock, the USB output is the clock. I had to configure this, and I had some drifting issues, and with key was to put the clock in the right location. For that may be dependent on the software you're using, but in order for everything to be happy and to not drift, which was the problem I was having for the last 3 days, where the audio would be desynchronized and then it would sound very distorted and unusable, and it's drifting because you can hear the oscillation of it. So if you hear distortion that has an oscillating nature, that is caused by your interfaces or your digital clock not being set properly. If leaving it in default is often the case, it will be good. As I left it in default, point is the clock in this particular case runs best on the USB out or USB input, which is what I'm using right now, and for everything else to be a slave, and that's done in the aggregates. And so that's this is a compensation for the time, and so that everything is sample accurate. Okay, so once you create the aggregate device, I close this, and close this also. Don't need this anymore. Then in the audio system, you select it. A hardware driver. Uh, 256 is the speed I'm trying to have everything comfortable. I set the settings at 256, buffer at 2 times. All of my devices are at this speed to try to keep everything in sync. This is about a 5 to 10 millisecond delay. It's not. It's a little bit noticeable, but it's not any worse than a sound source about 30 or 40 feet away. It's for The aggregate device is selected. These are all the list. There's the you can, if you're not using one or the other, just select whatever it is you're using. But if you want to use small, you have to select this one. So then it's okay. Okay, now everything is going to reset now. Okay, now the MIDI is also kind of be a little tricky. The MIDI is for some devices you have software, you will have to determine whether it's going to be an omni or if you're going to put everything on a channel, which would multi-record, which means different devices can be recorded separately, and then you can route the MIDI and have it played back. So what I in this particular song, it was experimentation, just kind of using something for the first time and coming up with some cool sounds. And I recorded the whole process, and I won't play it. Well, I won't play it now because it's not set for playback at this time. But the information and the parameter adjustments were kept. So later on, I can grab whatever is good in here and then actually make it fit properly. Now, I have the clock set so that Digital Performer will change its tempo settings if it receives a tempo. Now, it's important as well. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the channels and how to set things up. Also, the tracks, and there's also a virtual instrument. This is a template. And like for instance, I have the Falcon, and all of the MIDI tracks for the 16 channels that I have set up for Falcon are open. So if any of the instruments I wanted to use for this virtual instrument, I would just select a track and then change these settings. Like if I'm using the microKORG, then it would be, if this is track 4, then microKORG track 4. And then when you go to the device, it's in the virtual instrument. So we go press this button right here. All right. So here the Falcon is over here. It's in a different screen here if you'll see it. But anyway, I'll bring it down. Okay. So this virtual instrument here is pretty comprehensive. You can put all your favorite sounds in here, and then come to it. So a lot of these are like the sounds that I've liked over the last little while, and it's like various things and drum machines and all this things that so every one of these tracks can be set internally, and you just record the information, and then that information later is used to trigger the audio from the device. It could be often it would be the device that you record on and you want it to play back, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anything. It's all about the routing. So I'll quickly go over the routing here and bring this up. So in the virtual instruments, they'll feed, like in this particular case, it's going to the aggregate device, which is the left and right. But if we were recording, the individual instrument itself can either go through that, or you can set up a separate. You can put it through a bus, and then the audio, which is recorded over here, and here we have it, so you can input it. You can take it in. You can take it in either through the bus, stereo audio track, and then the stereo audio track, and then you would go new stereo bundle, and then bus 1 and 2. And so this is your input, and then you go back to your virtual instrument, which is the Falcon, which is over here, and then you would set that to bus 1 and 2, and then it routes into here, and then where you would input and then record. Um, and so rather than hearing it through the left and right, when as you're monitoring, when you're ready to record, you have to route it this way. Now that is if you're using the entire instrument. This particular, because Falcon has 16 different inputs, it also has the ability to route every one of these channels independently, which is probably a good idea, because then you can change each of the sounds based on the recordings in the MIDI, because the MIDI is information, it's not the actual sounds. And then this is how you render the sounds, and then once you are satisfied with them, you record them. You can record either the entire instrument or separately. If you were to do it separately, as I did with the Linux sampler. Now I won't bring the Linux sampler up because I'll just leave the way it is, but as you can see, I have them corresponding to the outputs of the machine. So what I can do, let's say if I wanted to switch this around, we just go to the stereo bundle, and then here these are all of the choices you have for routing. And so I can take in like a number of channels from Reaper. This is just there. I can route to Reaper and then from. Okay, so this is just like a doorway. Same with Contact. Contact is something I have loaded, so I have all of these outputs available from Contact. The Linux sampler is what I have over here, and then here's my Falcon. And so I can take 1 and 2 is the output that is part of the aggregate. So the following set of outputs would be 3 and 4. So if we leave 1 and 2, it becomes the main. So everything that is routed in Falcon as main will end up going through 1 and 2, and then the individual instrument, let's say we go 3 and 4. And then we come over here, and then we look at, we were going to do number 4. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the subs. Okay, so we probably would put this on channel 4 because it's going to be recorded on channel 4, and just to keep everything lined up. And so you have it there, and then your output over here is over here where it says main out. And so the main out is the 1 and 2, and then this out number 2 would be output 3 and 4, which you're going to record. And so we put this on 3 and 4, and we're not hearing it, but let's just see. Let's just put it on. If I put the note on hold, see if I put latch and then this, and it'll play on. And now I go to over here, you can see the output is over here. So now this is pure subbage going on right now, and from here you can do all of your the rest of your recording. You can go ahead, and it becomes audio at this point, like any other microphone or sound that we hear. It just becomes, at this point, it's audio, and then it could be mixed from this point on as audio. So one channel, all the channels are separate by keeping them all together, and then you do that. But you can keep them in folders. And then one of the things I like to put the channel strip on the side here, so when I select it, it selects along with me. And so here's our master, and you can see all the settings for that is right here. Now I left the sub, and see right here you can see the audio coming through, and the input is on, and we don't need this right now, so I'm going to turn this off. So I put these all in folders so that I can get them out of the way when I'm not using them. So this is a Contact. Normally I would use drums, bass, fretless, and keys. So this would be you just select the channels, and see the drums are coming to the MPC. So here's your source. You can record the information over here through the network, through whatever you have connected. I have the microKORG, I have the iPad. The input, if you have an instrument or something that you want to send the MIDI information, and then you want it to receive, then you would put this on input, and then you send to this input from your outside machine. So same thing with the AIC driver. It's a way to connect the devices and the recording and the tracks in the background. The network itself is also something that's very useful if you understand how to use it. And whatever other device. So it's all your inputs are over here. It's enabled, and then here are your outputs. And so the output of the information, which is going to go towards the instrument, in this case contact, which is contact channel 10, which would be the drums. So the MPC itself is a drum machine, and so it'll trigger the contact machine. So you can have it in this particular situation. You can have you can record the pattern that you made on the MPC, and then when it's played back, the MPC will also likely play back because it's going to be in sync with the start stop, and so then you will have the synchronized information from the MPC that's recorded, which is then going to trigger the contact drum machine, which is we'll take a look at it. We don't have the this Windows setting is a little different. So anyway, contact is over here, and these are all the virtual instruments. And once you have this set up, you save this as well. So I'll get into that in a minute. All right, so here is our drum machine. Sometimes you do have to initialize these. Sometimes these are not, when you open it up, you got to go through them all and start them up sometimes. It's loading up right now. Okay, so it's a pretty so this is a natural sounding drum machine, and what I like to do, I really like to blend it too. I mean, it sounds much best, really good when you blend your instruments. So this is a free package, actually, the free contact player, and the drum mic A package from Sennheiser is kind of an advertising thing out of Germany, and they're great. They just give you the product without here nothing like here's a perfect recreation of how our microphones sound like compared to the best microphones in the world, which are the Neumanns. So they're kind of they're both German, and they're both competing against each other. And when it comes to microphones, the Germans are they got that covered. So this is a fantastic package here. So what's nice is that you can combine whatever sounds that you have on your sampler, external sampler, and then accurately lock it, and so that you can blend in an acoustic instrument like this, and again the same thing. The routing, you set it so like a port A could be the what is being sent from the DAW. So we go to it would be 10 because that's what it's supposed to be. But here it's not set to that, so I better set it properly. If I set this to 10, okay, and then the output, I have all the choices of output. So I could have it left, right, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so that each one of these channels is separate. So you multi-track outside and then through this mixer right here, and so these are the settings for each drum, just like in live sound. And you can even select your microphones. This thing is the bomb. Okay, and then under there you also have all of the bass, jazz guitars, and everything. So you just put your instruments together in contact. Really good, really good. And you're not committed to these sounds either because you're doing the information. So you have your choices still are open when you do it in this way. So here is your virtual instrument package over here. So we have, in this case, like a Falcon contact Little Nick sampler, the SH101, which is the bass Roland thing, guitar, and Lounge Lizard, which is just a keyboard. So it's great to have that. Same with the Linux sampler when it comes to the piano. And everything that's done acoustically, and then the sequencing where you record everything. So what I did in this particular case is I jammed this information over here while recording on a separate machine. I'll just open it up like this. Really weighing this guy down here. Okay, so everything that's coming out of the mixer, no matter where it's coming and going, for the sake of routing, what I hear is being recorded right here in on a G5 with a killer card. So this card right here is some pretty high performance stuff. It's go directly into the machine, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4 channels of in, and 1, 2, 3, 4 out, and then the master out, and then I use Reaper, which is fairly current considering this machine is 13 years old, to record everything, and it just does a fantastic job. So this guy is just in the background archiving everything, and you know, and then I have like all of my experimentations, and anytime it sounds good, I just press record, bing bang boom, and I just been collecting it like that. And then later on, I'll go through this and pick it up, and this machine has absolutely no problem dealing with that. So I recorded the live audio on this machine, which is connected to the same mixer, which is, and the other thing about this is good, is that when you hear it sounding great, sometimes when you record it and you play it back, you kind of lose that magic, or you lose the synchronizing, or you can't recreate it, and it happens often enough, especially when you're just kind of figuring out how to do your setups and everything. So having this running in the background is kind of essential. You really, really, really should be capturing all of your tinkering and go through it, because you get the moments and the ideas fleeting in here, and then you can just rebuild that, whether it be a lick or a melody. You know, that's where you get all your good stuff, doing it this way. Okay, so the secondary record, extremely important, and it's routing in and out through the mixer as if it was a live instrument. So this would be the equivalent of broadcast, or what the people hear, or your monitoring, or your sends. And this is just one track now, but these could be multiple. Again, there's no real limits here. The limits are whatever you have in your imagination or your skills or whatever. So anyway, get out of that. The Reaper and the G5 recorded this. I mean, that was the audio that was listening, and then this is the information that was recorded. And then I took when I listened back, I recorded what was on the other computer onto here, and now with this routing and with the setup, I basically did a loop, and then these are the jamming information, and this is what came about. Now in here, when I find what's really nice, I'll be able to line these up together. I could synchronize these machines, but I find this is better at this point, until you know what you're doing, then you synchronize it. But when you're just jamming and just kind of coming up with ideas, keeping them separate, and then placing everything and building up your grid, building up your tempo, and then getting everything set up so that it has like a proper song that you can work within, you know, a proper structure, and then you can start your synchronize, like your multi-tracking, and doing your one instrument at a time, and developing the song, and then moving on from that point. So this is basically the setup to get going. There's a lot more to this, but the quality is very good. There's only one conversion process at every stage, going in or going out, and the accuracy and the synchronizing is when you're performing within 10 milliseconds through the buffer, and then once it's recorded, you have your reference, your MIDI information, and then your audio reference, and then you from there realign and reanalyze and actually compose your music from this point on. And if I continue doing videos, we'll get to that. All right, thanks.